experience doesn't mean that much if you're not actually good at governing.
My opponent lives in the world of fiction. I live in the world of fact.
Controlled by the state since 1965.
Can you stop interrupting? Can you stop interrupting?
Can you stop lying?
Yeah, as soon as you do.
Good evening and welcome to Metro Focus. I'm Rafael P. Roman. It was the one and only debate in this year's Democratic gubernatorial primary, but it didn't disappoint those who were looking for fireworks. After months of uncertainty over whether the debate would in fact take place, actor and activist turned politician Cynthia Nixon took to the stage at Hofstra University, going head-to-head with Governor Cuomo. During the heated hour, the two candidates repeatedly accused each other of distortion as they sparred over a number of issues facing the state, including health care, marijuana legalization, the collapsing subway system, and the threat posed by the federal government. Nixon honed in on what she views as an administration that's corrupt to the core, focusing specifically on the conviction of one of the governor's one-time close ally, Joseph Percoco.
Either Joe Percoco was doing something that the governor expected him to do and advised him to do, or his right-hand man was doing something under his own nose that he had no idea about. So we have either incompetence or corruption. Which is it?
But the governor fired back, calling out Nixon for lobbying Mayor de Blasio to stop helicopters flying over performances of Shakespeare in the Park, and for the manner in which she released her taxes.
In terms of transparency, I think my opponent should be careful with that word. She released 5 years of corporate taxes, dumped them in 3 hours on a Friday with no notice. Only Donald Trump has done less transparency on his taxes than my opponent.
When all is said and done, did the debate do anything to move the needle in any significant way? For perspective, we turn to political senior reporter Dana Rubenstein and New York Times chief political correspondent on the Metro desk, Shane Goldmacher. Thanks for joining us today, both of you.
Thanks for having us.
So Dana, what were the headlines in yesterday's debate? What struck you the most?
Honestly, it was the vitriol. I mean, it seemed to me like the governor was afraid, in some sense, of Cynthia, to the extent that he sort of reacted so strongly to everything she said, and I guess her mere presence in the race and the impact that she's having. I mean, he seemed very thin-skinned to me. He did not seem composed.
Okay.
I mean, I think that for Cynthia Nixon, the headline is big attention, right? This was on the cover of the New York Post. She was on national television, multiple networks already. She's getting attention. The downside for her, the headline, is that there isn't a headline about Andrew Cuomo. It wasn't that he snapped at her. It wasn't that he lost his temper. Look, he is known to get angry, to try to contain it. And
I actually think he did a pretty good job of doing that yesterday, if you've seen him in other contexts.
Yeah, and so given that, like, this was her goal, was to pull him out. You know, that clip of, can you stop lying? Look, his answer was not good, right? As soon as you do, it's like,
so I have been lying.
Wait a moment, that doesn't work out just so well. So for her, I think just getting that audience is the headline. She needs attention. She's not buying television ads. He's buying television ads. He's all over television. This is her chance. But did he do something terrible? No. No, I think he walked away without a signature clip that looks terrible for him.
You know, one literal headline that I saw in today's paper is when he essentially pledged that he wasn't going to run for president, that he would serve his full
dead body.
third terms. We have a clip of that exchange. I wonder if we could take a look.
I just want to be clear. You promised to serve 4 more years as governor if reelected.
The only caveat is if God strikes me dead. Otherwise, I will serve 4 years as governor of New York.
That's pretty surprising. Do you believe him? It sounded
Honestly,
like he was pretty definite.
I'm pretty dubious. That's a very easy promise to wriggle out of. And he's really...
The country needs me, right?
The country needs me. And, I mean, he's clearly been setting himself up for more sort of national prominence. I find it hard to believe.
You believe him?
6 months ago, I thought there was not much of a chance he wanted to run. The chances I think he is interested has gone up in the last 6 months. You know, breaking promises to God doesn't usually play that well.
So listen, you know, the first question to Nixon was what we would expect, which is about her fitness for office. Maurice Dubois asked her, what has she done that has prepared her to become governor of the 4th largest state in the country? She basically cited her activism and her advocacy for LGBTQ and education issues. Will that be sufficient for New Yorkers?
You know, I thought that answer was really interesting. I think that it was kind of like watching a gymnast go through a routine and doing all the moves right and then not quite sticking the landing.
Yeah.
She went through why she's an outsider, what is wrong with the governor, why it doesn't work for her, and then didn't really, I think, give a clear answer for voters as why she personally was prepared to be governor. I didn't find that her answer was tight and satisfying. Now, overall, she did a lot of things in that answer, but that basic question, why are you qualified, I don't think she really gave a good answer for an average voter who has questions about a new person.
Yeah, I agree. I thought that was the weakest moment of the debate for her. So she was fortunate in that it was the first moment
Yeah,
of the debate.
very early on.
Yeah.
Now, Governor Cuomo was confronted with his vulnerabilities, which include the crumbling subway system, corruption in his inner circle, his helping the Republicans keep control of the Senate, his corporate interest or ties to the corporations. Let's talk about the subway. How did he do well with the onslaught against him, which he said, you turn the MTA into AMT, is that right? No,
ATM.
the other way around, using the money for other purposes.
I mean, I'm not sure. If you know anything about how the subways are financed and how they function, I would say no, he did not do well. He sort of presented a lot of information that was not rooted in facts, and he sort of distanced himself from the subway that he controls via the MTA and asserted that it was actually, it was not an ideal sort of response from him. But if you don't know much about how the subway works, and I think that's what he's counting on, then maybe it's an effective
Well, he
message.
basically said that through history, the city has paid twice as much as the state, and now he's paying 4 times as much as the state. And so it's the city's fault. Wrong information?
I believe that's wrong information, yeah. But I'm sure there's a way to construe the numbers in some very
to figure
creative
that-
fashion
yeah.
so as to make that seem like an
And
accurate
clearly, it's a
response.
vulnerability for him, right? This is something that millions of New Yorkers get on every day. The base of the Democratic primary vote is in New York City, and the subway system isn't working as well as it used to. And he knows that's a vulnerability. He knows he can't fix the subways quickly enough, and so he's trying to blame other people.
But another vulnerability for him that he seems not to recognize is that people are on to this habit of his of first owning the subway system, particularly when it's the opening of the Second Avenue subway, and then distancing himself from it when it's not, in his interest to own it. And he keeps going back and forth, and he's done this for years. And it's a pattern that is recognizable to more than just sort of political cognizance.
Right, but this is certainly an issue that anyone would run away from, because as we were talking about earlier, every day is an issue for millions of New Yorkers. The question coming into the debate was whether Cynthia Nixon, a neophyte, could go head-to-head with the governor. Whatever you think of her politics, she seemed cool, calm, collected, combative, and certainly well-informed. But she decided to go after him, to rattle him, to bring out the bad Cuomo in him by interrupting him. Do you think that worked?
I thought it was effective in presenting her as someone with a certain amount of strength. I think it was the only option available to her. I mean, he exudes a lot of sort of intensity. I mean, you need someone up there who can go head to head with him.
Shane, earlier this week, in the gubernatorial primary in Florida, the Democratic gubernatorial primary, the candidate of the Bernie Sanders wing of the party, his name is Andrew Gillum, upset the party regular and won. Cynthia Nixon is in that part of that wing of the party here. Is New York there yet for somebody who declares herself a democratic socialist?
There are some similarities between the Florida race and New York, but I wouldn't call them parallels. The person that Andrew Gillum beat was a former congresswoman, not a 2-term governor. This is a far harder race to win for Cynthia Nixon than that race was. But look, the parallel is also that the Gillum spent very little money on television. Nixon has spent no money on television. Millions in TV ads were for his opponents, millions for Andrew Cuomo. There's a belief among a lot of Democrats that they don't know who's going to turn out in these primaries. There's a massive turnout in Florida. Who's going to turn out on a Thursday in September in New York? We don't know.
And talking about spending money, there was an interesting bit in the debate when Maurice Dubois asked Cynthia Nixon whether, because she's a millionaire, she's going to forego her gubernatorial salary. We have a clip of that. Let's take a look.
And considering that you embrace what's known as democratic socialism,
Yes.
Will you forego the governor's salary of $179,000 and turn it back to the state?
Sure.
No salary,
No salary.
maybe $1.
Maybe $1.
Okay.
It looks like she made up the decision right then and there. Is it conceivable that she never thought about this before?
Yeah.
$170,000. Boy, that's listen, we got to go. But so, last question: who's happier today about the performances yesterday? Which of the candidates?
God, who knows? They're probably both reasonably content with how they performed.
I mean, I think they're both happy, and I think the fact that they're both happy means Cuomo's happier.
Okay. All right, guys. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure having you here with us.
Thanks for having me.